Hi guys, gals, and pals. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. You better be. If not, try to do something about it to make it better. So we are going to be doing our first dedicated Let's Play that's not going to be an uploaded live stream from Twitch. And unfortunately it will be starting off on a little bit of a somber note, but I think it's very important nonetheless. As soon as I heard about this game, I thought, okay, maybe I should try to record this and see where it goes. I've heard reviews here and there, but I always try to find things out for myself rather than go off of other people's comments. Sometimes they are pretty useful, but other times I like to think that I try to search for the truth, so to speak, on my own. So let's jump right into it. So here we are. A little nervous, but let's see how this goes. Its emotional character is probably most indescribable, except as a sort of double bind in which all of the alternatives we associate with human agency, sitting or standing, doing or resting, speaking or keeping silent, living or dying, are not just unpleasant, but literally horrible. David Foster Wallace. I feel like I've heard this name, but I'm not entirely sure. Depression Quest is a game that deals with living with depression in a very literal way. This game is not meant to be fun or lighthearted experience. If you are currently suffering from illness and are easily triggered, please be aware this game uses stark depictions of people in very dark places. If you are suicidal, please stop playing this game and visit the suicide prevention hotline to talk to somebody. I think this kind of goes without saying with a game like this. We are going to be dealing with some very serious topics. If this is something you think that's a little bit too much for you, then by all means click on any other link in my channel. Or not. The goal of this game is twofold. Firstly, we want to illustrate as clearly as possible what depression is like so that it may be better understood by people without depression. Hopefully this can be something to spread awareness and fight against the social stigma and misunderstandings that depression sufferers face. Secondly, our hope is that in presenting as real a simulation of depression as possible, other sufferers will come to know that they aren't alone and hopefully derive some measure of comfort from that. It goes without saying that because of the very nature of depression, it is experienced differently by every person who suffers from it. We aren't trying to say that this is the best or most accurate representation, merely that this is an amalgamation of the experiences of the developers and several people close to them. Many of the following encounters deal with issues such as therapy, medication, handling of love life, and reaching out to support networks. In reality, less than half of depression sufferers actually seek treatment for reasons such as lack of money, perceived personal failing, or public stigma. These things were included in order to touch upon a broad range as possible, since all these elements can be very important to sufferers of depression, though they will likely not be the experiences of most sufferers. It is important to recognize that not everyone with depression is so lucky. Many people with the illness don't have a lot of the luxuries that we have in this game. We've written it this way so that we can focus specifically on the illness, which becomes more and more difficult to deal with as a person who has it is less and less well off. This game uses audio as part of the play experience. You have to play with sound on. Alright, let's see. I can't imagine this has too many controls, because from what I know, it's kind of like a click-through type of experience, but oh, so you can use a controller with this. I think I'll do keyboard and mouse. I think I'll be good with that. Zoom game. Okay. Let's get into it then. Again, if you're not comfortable, no one's gonna judge you. Click off if you have to. Oh, this is really nice. I like this. It is early on a Monday morning. You're a mid-20s human being. You have a significant other named Alex, who you're rather fond of, that you've been seeing exclusively for the past few months. The rest of your social circle consists of a variety of friends and acquaintances, some of whom you've met at your day job, which is a little boring, but pays the rent. You'd like to be doing something more with your life, as you as would your parents, but you're still in the process of figuring out what that means and how to go about it. You're also dealing with motivation issues that sometimes makes dealing with these things difficult. You feel like this is probably your fault, and on bad days can feel inwardly angry and down on yourself for being lazy. But you're not quite sure how you can break out of it or how other people deal with these feelings, and seem so very functional. You spend a lot of nights fixating on things about this, but never seem to do anything about it other than lose sleep. Oh, you can click on these. Okay. You met Alex through a mutual friend a few months back. The two of you hit it off pretty well that first night. After a series of initially awkward dates, I mean, honestly, it's always really awkward in the beginning. You finally become a couple, much to your surprise and excitement. Alex is 3 months younger than you are and is currently a student with a part-time job and a broad social circle. She's also got a wide variety of interests, and oftentimes you worry that you might be too boring for her, but she's been good at trying to reassure you that she's happy with you. Your relationship consists of a lot of nights and watching Netflix when you've both got time off and she doesn't have classes. With the occasional social outing, she tends to have to talk you into attending. She tries to be understanding when you're in one of your moods, as she puts it, though you're starting to feel like she doesn't understand what it's like for you. And this is a source of tension in your relationship, coupled with your reluctance to want to go to college parties. This feeds your worry of not being exciting enough for them. Oh gosh. Alcohol and depression is never a good combo. Never a good combo. That's not a great picture to put for a social circle, so I'm a bit wary right now. Your social circle is made up of a few close friends, some of which you've known from high school, and some from jobs you've worked. You've also made various acquaintances through reluctantly going to social events with Alex that you keep in touch with a few friend of friends that you occasionally run into. You also have several online friends that you talk to regularly that you feel less guarded with, possibly due to communicating from the safety of being behind the keyboard. You enjoy the low commitment of the friendship since they don't expect very much of you other than to listen and share personal thoughts and experiences. Despite the low commitment, you feel fairly connected with these people and tend to be more honest with them than people you interact with in real life on a day-to-day basis. You feel incredibly nervous trying to make new friends on your own, and are very good at talking yourself out of going into unfamiliar places or large social engagements, regardless of how much you might actually want to attend. Meeting new people stresses you out to a high degree, and this is something you wish you could work past. Honestly, as someone who has depression and I do have anxiety, I always judge whether I'm going to a place based on, do I have, like, safe people, you know? And what I mean by safe people is, like, people that you're like, okay, if I don't know that many people here, I have safe people that I can kind of bounce energy off of and know that no matter what, like, I'm not going to be alone. Like, there's going to be other people that, like, I know and I feel comfortable talking to. And then also how the parking is, because driving gives me anxiety. Though I've been getting better, but I still will very strictly judge whether I go to a place based off of the parking, and that's how I kind of talk myself out of going places. So, you admit you have a bad habit of flaking on social engagements, even longtime friends, and are puzzled as to why some days you just can't force yourself to go see these people that you really do care about. Those that have stuck around long enough to be that close with you understand that this is a thing that you sometimes do, and have seemed to more or less accept it even though they chide you for it on occasion. However, you had friends in the past give up trying to maintain a friendship with you because of this trait. Taking your social anxieties as a personal slight, or eventually getting tired of trying to track you down all the time. You feel incredibly guilty about this, but are not quite sure how to change. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people who I know personally who have depression kind of distance themselves when they're getting to, like, that bad spot, because they feel like, oh, I don't want to burden anybody else with me feeling down, and I don't want to like make anybody else feel down or depressed, so I'm just gonna self-isolate until I feel better. And then sometimes it kind of puts them in an awkward position because all of a sudden they were gone for how long, and then they're back in these social circles and everybody's like, okay, well, what happened to you? And it's kind of difficult to juggle between the two. Alright, let's see what our day job is like. Oh, I see a keyboard. Oof. You have a day job which you feel is really nothing special. You started out receiving minimum wage, but have stayed around long enough to be making enough to support yourself. The work is dull and unrewarding, and most days you feel like just about anyone could do it. You have a hard time relating to most of your coworkers, so you mostly keep to yourself and get the work done while you're there. There are one or two people you chat with, though you wouldn't consider yourself close with them. A lot of days lately, you have a really hard time getting out of bed, forcing yourself to go in. You're starting to wonder how long you can keep this up. You'd really like to find another job in your field of interest, but feel like you are just underqualified every time you look at online job postings. Sometimes you think about going back to school, but you would be unsure how you'd be able to support yourself and wonder if the degree would really help anyway. Oh goodness, the parents. Food. Okay, interesting. Interesting picture choice. Hopefully it makes sense. You're one of the few people you know whose parents never got divorced, but you do wonder if they still love each other sometimes. Oh, that's awkward. You have an older brother named Malcolm who has moved across the country with his wife to work a high-paying job. Every major holiday that you see him at, you feel a bit jealous and like the lesser kid, despite being genuinely happy to see him. You feel very ashamed of these feelings. Your parents genuinely care about you. This often involves inviting you back to your childhood home for dinner, though your mother thinks you never visit quite enough. But you get the impression they don't fully understand you. They want to see you succeed, but don't know why you haven't gone further in life yet, because you're so smart and talented. Anytime you try to talk to them about your motivation issues, they tell you that the solution is simply to work harder or want it more. Your father is generally more forgiving of your lack of career path, while your mother seems to think you're too smart to be in a position you're in. You know they love you, and sometimes they're not bad people, but you really feel like a big disappointment sometimes. Aww. Alright, let's see. Oh. The music's changing. It's an unseasonably warm Wednesday evening. You spent the past several hours at work. The past week or so you found your job motivation flagging more so than usual. You've been in a fog practically all day today, simply going through the motions without realizing even what you've been doing half the time, and yet time seems to be moving at half speed. You're so checked out that your boss approaches you to tell you that it's dead and you can go home early. It barely registers. As you walk home, the streets hiss from the recent rainfall. You know that your significant other will be in classes until late, another couple hours at least. You briefly consider using this serendipitous solitude to catch up on that project that you've been working on haphazardly for the past few months. Okay, let's see what the project is. Ooh, is this art? Let's see. A while back, some of your older friends and you were out at a bar catching up. After liquefying considerably more for your paycheck. Is that spelled right? I don't know. After liquefying considerably more of your paycheck than was perhaps responsible and ending up thoroughly in your cups, you open up to the only people you really consider yourself close to, end up launching into a drunken tirade about the meaninglessness of your utter menial job and ultimately your own existence. Having never really seen you in such a state before, your friends were briefly taken aback by your sudden uncharacteristic outburst. One of your friends suggested that you get involved with your hobby on a more regular, long-term basis, suggesting that spending your energy on something you actually care about might help you better cope with the shadiness of your 9-to-5. Although you're embarrassed that you let your guard down and you felt self-conscious at seeming to have single-heartedly brought the mood down at the table, you convinced yourself on the cab ride home that maybe it'd be worth trying out. You began your project some months ago and have miraculously managed to keep at it, though your level of motivation and subsequent effort rises and falls considerably. While you were surprised when you started at how good it felt to actually work on something you were passionate about, lately you found it hard to muster the energy to really care about even this. As soon as you think about the work that awaits you at home, you can feel the panic creeping in from the back of your brain, unbidden. All you can think about is how incredibly far behind you are, and the amount of work seems nothing less than insurmountable. By the time you arrive home and change out of your uncomfortable work clothes, the stress is weighing down on you like a heavy, wet wool blanket. Your computer seems to be staring you down from your desk. You want to sit down and work, but the mere thought of trying to work sends you into stress levels flying. More than anything, you feel suddenly and absolutely exhausted, and have a strong desire to simply hide in bed. Do you? Order some food, grab a drink, hunker down for the night of work. Ooh, it's crossed out. Your depressed interaction is exhausting, becoming more and more withdrawn. You're not currently seeking a therapist. You're not currently taking medication. Okay. Sit down at your desk, try to make yourself do something. Turn on TV, tell yourself you need a quick half hour to unwind from work. Personally, I would try to force myself to kind of do it. Make a stop at your fridge, turn your favorite playlist on, and sit down to start working. You open the last file you were working on, and as soon as your hand touches the keyboard, your mind goes blank. All the motivation ideas you had when you arrived home vanish in a flash. Your brain seizes up, and you find yourself physically incapable of any sort of productive thought. You take a break and loosen up, popping into your email inbox, Twitter, and various other internet-based distraction fodders. Frustratingly, this pattern continues throughout the course of the evening. As soon as you try to focus on work, your brain diverts all of its energy away from the task at hand. While you keep flipping back to your work, you find the sheer mental effort involved in keeping your brain focused is overwhelming and tiring. A few Twitter arguments, YouTube videos, sparse amounts of actual work later, your playlist flips back to track 1 and the ice in your glass is all but melted, diluting the last dregs of the coke you were nursing. You look down at the clock and realize a few hours have passed since you sat down to work and you've made negligible progress. I can just wake up early tomorrow and catch up, you think to yourself as you climb into bed, even though you know that never actually happens. It's a mild Friday afternoon. Alex calls you from her classes telling you that there's going to be a really awesome birthday party tonight at her apartment that one of her roommates is throwing. You've hung out with this roommate a few times with Alex, and you get along quite well, but aren't particularly close. You don't have work in the morning and have nothing else in particular to do tonight. You are feeling kind of run down, but you have been fatigued most of the time lately. You mention that you're feeling ill because you're not sure how else to explain those feelings to someone else, and say that you aren't sure that you can make it tonight. There's a second of silence over your phone, but you can swear you can hear the sound of your partner's face fall. Aww. She tries to convince you anyway. You haven't seen her this week, and she sounds pretty insistent that you come over. She even drops a few suggestive worded hints that you stay over with them tonight after the party. What do? Shake off your funk, have a good time with your girlfriend. It's hard, because it's like, if you're not feeling it and you force yourself to go somewhere, sometimes you can presently surprise yourself and have a good time. Other times it's like, you can't seem to just have fun, no matter how hard you try. So I think it kind of depends on, like, how... Doesn't have work in the morning. I would say agree to go. Just because. Ooh, okay. You agree to go even though you're not really feeling social. You know it's important to Alex, and you really like to see her. Seeing her does make you feel better sometimes. There you go. And you hope that this is the case tonight, even if it does mean dealing with all the unusual social anxiety. The time to leave rolls around, you grab your overnight bag. Alex's apartment is a short walk away. Oh wow, only a short walk away. That's pretty nice. There's already people hanging out on the porch. You can feel your chest tighten as you approach the building and try to steel your nerves. You quickly find your partner chatting away with the birthday girl, and Alex immediately lightens up when she sees you. So happy you came. I wasn't sure if you were gonna make it. Aww. The young man taps her on the shoulder. She turns back to you to apologize to let you know they have to do something for the party. Alex hands you a beer and plants a kiss on your cheek before going off to deal with whatever came up. As you look around, you don't see anyone else you recognize. Oh, I hate this. Awkwardly stand in the same spot, unsure what else to do. Put your bag in Alex's room, avoid the crowd in there for a while, cling to the back wall, sip your beer, and wait for your girlfriend to return. Proceed to drink in earnest, hoping it makes you less uncomfortable. Okay, I would say cling to the wall and sip beer. I would do that. And just chill, just kind of observe the crowd of people. That's always the safest thing to do, honestly. As Alex leaves, you're not quite sure what to do with yourself. Standing in the middle of the room leaves you feel kind of exposed, and you don't feel ballsy enough to randomly approach any of the groups of people clustered together talking. You head to a clear spot on the back wall and lean against it. For some reason, this always feels a lot more secure. You can scan the party for a familiar face or sign of your partner and come up with nothing. I'm not sure what else to do, and worrying you must feel creepy just standing there watching everyone and take out your phone to busy yourself. 20 semi-tedious games of Bejeweled Blitz later, your partner returns. You spend the rest of the night with Alex, occasionally being introduced to people and nodding along with group conversations, even if you don't participate in them much. At the end of the night, you're falling asleep with your girlfriend in the crook of your arm. She thanks you again for coming. Half drunk, she finds that she thought you were going to flake out and pleasantly surprised that you managed to come out. She says it lovingly, but you're not quite sure how you feel about the statement. Oh, that's sad. I know personally, sometimes when people say certain things, you're kind of unsure of like how to decode it, and you're like, okay, did you mean to be like pointed with that, or was that like a I'm happy kind of thing? It seems like she was very happy that he showed up, so that's good. That's good. Not sure what this is a picture of. I don't know. It's a little afternoon on a muggy Saturday. Your mother has come over for a surprise visit, claiming loudly she doesn't see you enough, so she decided to invite herself over. As you converse, she walks around your place, and you get the distinct impression you're being inspected. So what's going on with you lately? She asks abruptly. Taken somewhat aback by this left fielder, you tell her you're not sure what she means. She repeats the question, saying that you haven't seemed like yourself lately. She gestures to dirty dishes piled in the sink, notes the fact that you haven't called or visited in a while. Your reticence only seems to spur her on more. She presses you, asking if you're having problems at work or with Alex, and you're beginning to feel increasingly battered by her sudden, well-meaning but overwhelming inquisition. Under her questions, you become increasingly uncomfortable. You want to be able to explain to her how you've been feeling, but the truth is you're not really sure of yourself. Nothing horrific has happened at work with you or your significant other or friends or anything like that, but all the same, you can't deny that lately you felt drained. And as though you're not really here. You wish you could tell your mother these things, but she hasn't been approachable about negative emotions in the past. That's tough. That's tough to deal with. She's the kind of person who holds the opinion that the solution to any problem is simply to try harder and maintain a positive attitude. The stance has reared its head in the past conversations when you've begun to explore the subject with her. You know she's unlikely to be understanding, and you feel the energy drain out of you. When you imagine what would happen if you managed to blurt out everything you're feeling, what do? What's crossed out is let her know that you've been feeling down lately and you appreciate her concern. Oh, the thing here changed. You're very depressed, spent a large amount of time sleeping, hating yourself, and having very little energy or motivation. Everything's fine, thank her for asking. If she's not receptive to talking about negative emotions, then I would just kind of keep it strictly business, so to speak. So I'd say everything's fine. Thank you for asking. I'm okay, Mom, really. Thanks for worrying about me. Your mother looks at you from across the room with furrowed brows, and you wonder if the tone in your voice was the least bit convincing. She slightly opens her mouth as though she was about to say something more, but instead she digs through her purse for her cell phone, having apparently decided against it. Well, as long as you're okay, honey, her voice trails. She knows something's up. As your mother returns to what amounts to more or less small talk, you realize that this part of the conversation has happened a lot recently. Someone will express concern for you or ask if you're okay. Out of seemingly nowhere, you tend to find it simpler just to declare that you're okay rather than find the right words for complicated, murky feelings. Besides, since none of them are in reaction to a specific event, maybe you really are okay and just complaining about nothing anyway. Sometimes when you insist that you're okay to those who ask, you have to wonder if you're trying to convince them or yourself. The good old self-gaslight. is this picture? Is that like a cat eye? I don't know what that is. That's a bit freaky. I think that's a cat. I hope that's a cat. It's a lazy Sunday morning. You are idly clicking around online as your phone rings. Sam, a coworker of yours that you're friendly with, asks how you are and makes hurried small talk with you. You typically only ever talk to him on the phone when one of you needs a shift covered, so it's slightly awkward. You're waiting in anticipation for him to ask for you to come in on short notice when he veers the conversation in a completely different direction. How do you feel about cats, he asks. Oh, there you go. It is a cat. Mine had kittens a few weeks ago, and I'm having an awful hard time finding a home for the last one in the litter. You don't have any pets, right? It takes you a moment to process this new information, and you're caught off guard as he begins to earnestly try to sell you on the idea of taking the last kitten off his hands. It's not something that you had specifically considered before, but he seems fairly insistent. She's a real sweetheart, really loves people. She's got all her shots already taken care of. And the vet said she's healthy as a horse. I can bring her over by your place tonight if you're interested. You look around your apartment and try to picture a cat in it as he continues to tell you how cute she is. You tell him that this is all kind of sudden and you don't have anything for the kitten set up here. Oh, don't worry about that. I can bring over a litter box, food, all that, since you'd be helping me out in the fix. It's the least I could do. I just don't want to have to put her in a shelter. You can't help but feeling you're being guilt-tripped, but you decide to give it some serious consideration. It does get awfully lonely in your apartment, and it might feel less empty with a cat around. However, since you've been feeling so down, it might not be a good idea to take on the responsibility of a cat, even if they are fairly low maintenance. What do you do? I've heard so many good stories about a cat, like, really helping when someone has depression. I feel like animals definitely pick up on those sorts of things and tend to be a little bit more sympathetic in their actions, so I feel like this would be good for him. 3, become a cat owner. You can oh, what's the first and the second one? Okay, the first and the second, it usually was just the first option, now it's the first and the second. So the first one says take the cat knowing full well you can take great care of it. 2, decline, even though you'd be totally capable of taking care of it, you're not much of a cat person. 3, become a cat owner. You can use companionship. 4, decline, you're not in a good enough place to be taking on more responsibility right now. 5, decline, you don't like cats. I'm gonna say become the cat owner. Do it. Look at him! It's so cute. Oh, it's a her. Okay. She's so cute. Okay. You accept the offer of the kitten and hang up shortly after making arrangements for when your coworker can drop her off tonight. You're not entirely sure what to expect, and you spend the rest of the afternoon researching cat care online and trying to think of a name. See, that's good. That's productive. That's definitely productive. The evening rolls around, you hear a knock at your door, startling you out of reading Wikipedia entirely too hard. You take possession of a small, terrified black and white kitten and a carrier, along with everything you need to start taking care of her. You take her into your bedroom and close the door and open the door to the carrier excitedly. She cowers in the back of it and you back off. Feeling slightly defeated, you remember what you researched on introducing a kitten to a new home and leave her alone to go mess around on your computer, hopefully checking over your shoulder every so often to see if she has come out yet. She hides inside her carrier periodically, making sorrowful cat howls, long enough for you to start worrying that she actually doesn't like you. By the time you go to bed, she's curled at the foot of it, eyeing you nervously before falling asleep. Oh, she's getting there. You gotta give cats time. That's the thing. It's very important. Over the next few days, you gain her trust. She begin affectionately following you around, sleeping on you, hopping on you anytime you sit down to do some work. Okay, these little gray boxes haven't changed, it looks like, so. A pizza. Late Friday afternoon and quitting time is just around the corner. A bright, clear day is giving way to a still, temperate evening. You can hear your coworkers all around you anxiously making plans for their evenings and weekends, but you're still really looking forward to just going home and resting after what's turned out to be a very long and taxing work week. Just before the end of your shift, you get a call from Alex. Seems like a group of your mutual friends are heading out to a nearby pub for dinner and drinks to celebrate the end of the week. They want to know if you'd like to come along. You tentatively tell her you're emotionally exhausted from a work week, and a social outing like that would just take too much out of you today. You encourage her to go, have a good time, since you know it's been a while since she's gone out with friends, but the effort feels futile since you know she isn't going to go without you. Oh. Couple hours later, you find yourselves in a familiar position on the couch watching comedy shows on Netflix, a box of pizza open on the coffee table in front of you. As you look across the couch at her, you start to feel anxious. You feel bad about effectively forcing the two of you to stay in tonight again, while you are always appreciative of your partner's efforts to take your feelings into account and make sure you're socially comfortable. You sincerely worry that you're holding her back from enjoying a more fulfilling relationship. Oh no. Well, she does seem to enjoy spending time with you as the two of you sit comfortably, almost contented silence, watching old shows you've seen 2 or 3 times before. Your ever-increasing fear that your relationship is coming one-sided weighs more and more heavily on you. You feel more than ever like a burden or a ward to her, and it's virtually impossible for you to see what values you could possibly offer to her in return. Worst of all, this nagging fear has made you feel more self-conscious than ever. Withdrawing ever inwards, you started to pull away even from Alex herself. What do you do? Okay, gray boxes are still the same. One has been crossed out. You know, despite bad times, your girlfriend sincerely loves you. Relationships are a two-way street, and you resolve to always be there for her, like she's been there for you. 2, tell Alex how important she is to you and enjoy your evening. I want to do 2. 3, ask Alex if she's happy with your relationship. Oh no. 4, don't say anything you're already worried about her being upset with you. Oh no. Communication is important, but like, I feel like there are better ways to go about it, you know? And like, not saying anything at all is kind of shitty. Usually the best thing in this type of situation where you're like, oh, am I really doing enough, is show your gratitude. To show that, like, oh, what you're doing for me right now is very much appreciated, and I love you. You know, that type of thing is always the best thing to do, not like, well, are you happy with our relationship right now? I feel like that's just really bad, but saying nothing is not great either. I don't want to just say nothing, though. Okay, we're gonna ask. Let's ask. Netflix. You look over at Alex, who hasn't noticed you watching her yet, and you try to parse the expression on her face. You worry that it's one of sheer boredom and bare intolerance. You wonder if she's thinking about all the fun things she could have been doing tonight if she wasn't trapped on this couch with you. Ordering from one of the same 3 takeout places that you always order from, a sense of disappointing her creeps over you as you picture what the night could have been if you just accepted the invitation she had made earlier. I know this is a pretty boring Friday night for you. Are you really happy being with me, being like this? She turns to look at you, forehead wrinkled. Why do you ask me that so often? You feel her body stiffen and pull away from yours just a little. Well, I mean, you start, but you're unable to try and think of how to answer. Oh no. 1, it's probably silly but reassuring when I hear that we're on the same page. Oh, that's a good one. 2, I want to make sure I'm right for you. 3, I know it's not what you'd usually be up to. 4, I guess I kind of get worried that you're getting bored sometimes. 5, never mind. I guess be honest. At this point, we already opened the can of worms. Let's be honest. Alex sighs. Look, if that were the case, I would let you know. I don't think you're boring. I think you're more of a homebody than I am. I'm learning how to deal with that. Deal with it, you think? Repeating in your mind. Does she see you as a problem to be dealt with? Oh no. Word choice is important, but like, scrutinizing word choice, which is something that I have problems with, does not make things easier. You try to pick her reply apart in your mind, and all of your conclusions lead to previous worry that you're holding her back. You begin to thinking the phrase was chosen without too much deliberation, and that despite her attempts at reassuring you, the slip of the tongue revealed her true feelings. As you picture how much fun she would be having right now if only you had accepted her invitation and managed to somehow get over your reservations and anxieties, despite not knowing how you would go about that, she cuddles back up to you. Thanks for putting up with me, you say, staring at the TV without actually watching it. She sighs in response. Oh no. The coffee. It's a breezy Sunday afternoon. You've allowed Amanda, an old friend from school that is in town for the weekend, to talk to you into leaving the house for coffee and catch up. You meet her in a small cafe and talk about what you've been up to since you've last seen each other. But you can't help but feel like they're a lot more accomplished and interesting than you while listening to them talk about their life after school. When it's your turn to brief them on your activities, you feel anxious and ashamed, and give a very abbreviated version. You try to talk about your job as little as possible, and you feel incredibly boring while you describe it, despite her expressing sincere interest in you and your life. Amanda has known you long enough to read your mood and tone of voice. She leans in to ask a question while gently touching your hand, a look of genuine concern on her face. What's wrong? Do you test the waters, open up a little, hoping she'll understand, insist nothing is wrong, change the subject? Spencer asks what she means by that, notice that your hands are shaking. I would test the waters. I would kind of test the waters and see, like, okay, is she going to be comfortable with a little inkling? Though you find it hard to lay out how you're feeling lately to other people, you decide to test the waters with opening up to Amanda. She hasn't been easy to talk to, and you feel like it's possible that she might be understanding of what's been going on with you, even if you think it doesn't make sense sometimes. You begin to dance around the subject, dipping your toe into the pool to test the water. Surprisingly, she catches on quickly, and is even able to guess what you may say next. She asks the right questions, leading you to elaborate on your emotional state. You apologize profusely the entire time, feeling like you're being obnoxious, but she reassures you that you aren't burdening her. Amanda reveals to you that her mother suffers from clinical depression, and that she spent many nights talking her through a very similar feeling. She mentions that therapy and medication may have helped her tremendously, and suggests you give it a try. You fight it and feel somewhat like a charity case, but she tells you that she'll get the number of her mother's therapist and email it to you as soon as possible. Afterward, conversation drift back to small talk and shared hobbies, and you spend a pleasant afternoon together. See, that's good. For the rest of the day, you find yourself wondering if therapy or medication can really help you. If you have an illness or simply complaining too much, and remember horror stories you've heard about antidepressants. You're not sure about what you'll do if she remembers to email you the number for the therapist, and you secretly hope she forgets about it so you can avoid dealing with it at all. I think it's important to go to therapy, honestly. And if you can't afford therapy, then CBT and DBT writing workbooks are actually pretty helpful if you put enough effort into trying to understand yourself and your thought process. It's a glaring sunny Monday, and one of the few days that your brother Malcolm is in town and free long enough for you two to actually see each other. You have a dental appointment that day, but you make plans for him to pick you up afterward. Your appointment takes a little longer than expected because your dentist tells you that you've started grinding your teeth in your sleep to a worrying degree. Given how nearly everything in your life has been feeling enormous and stressful lately, this doesn't come as a surprise to you. He suggests that you try to reduce your stress levels and fits you for a night guard. It feels awkward and too big for your mouth, and you feel embarrassed looking at your puffed out face in the mirror with it. You finish up the appointment in a hurry and leave about half an hour overdue for meeting your always punctual brother in the parking lot. You finish as quickly as possible and leave the building to scan the parking lot for your brother's car, but you don't see his old Civic anyway. Civic, eh? You pass by a blue Camaro and jump as it beeps at you, causing you to jump in surprise. It takes you a moment to realize it, but Malcolm is in the driver's seat. Wow. Damn. Upgrades, people. You hop in the passenger seat and compliment him on his new ride, and he mentions it's a perk of a promotion he's recently obtained at work. He starts telling you about how much more money he's making, how his career is really taking off, and how he started looking at houses with his wife soon. You clutch a bag containing the night guard in your hand and feel yourself clench your teeth as you think of your crummy apartment and how long it's been since you've been able to take a day off work without having to worry about making ends meet. He's only 2 years older than you, but it feels like he has eons ahead of you, even in every other aspect of your life. So yes, how did your apartment go? Did you get drilled full of holes, or what? A sense of shame creeps over you. 1, laugh about your dorky night guard with your brother. Oh, appointment, not apartment. My bad. 3, lie. Tell him it was a routine cleaning. 4, tell him about your tooth grinding problem, but not the stress causing it. The way he describes Malcolm is in a positive light, and then it gets along with him. So honestly, be open about it. I would say be open about it. So let's tell him. Actually, I guess I've been grinding my teeth in my sleep too much. Oh yeah, Malcolm asks, isn't that a stress thing? Yeah, I guess I've been having kind of hard time lately. So I'm sorry to hear that, kiddo. Malcolm glances over at you. You stare at the window, feeling suddenly self-conscious. As you watch the houses and cars zip by, he asks, anything you want to talk about? don't know, it's hard to talk about. Trying to figure out where to start feels like trying to pin down something flying around in your head, except it's one of millions of tiny bits of static flying around in there. It's more than talking about specific events, because there are times you feel miserable without any specific catalyst to point to. It's a constant din of noises in the back of your head that never goes away. It only ever gets turned down. You try to explain all this to Malcolm. He asks a lot of questions without judgment. In an effort to help, you give words this jumble of massive negative emotion. The two of you end up getting takeout, going back to your place, and talk late into the night. Your kitten takes a liking to him really quickly. Hey! Despite the serious conversation going on around her, she rolls around between the two of you. After a long back and forth, he asks, "Is there anything I can do to help with this? Don't tell Mom, okay?" Yeah, she wouldn't get it, he replies with a slight laugh. Does talking about it help? Sometimes, kind of. Well, okay. Know that you can call me anytime you need. He rests one of his enormous hands on your shoulder. You'll get through this, kiddo. Oh, see, it's good. It's good. It's good. Even opening up to a sibling can be kind of helpful. Alright, so this changed. Your depressed interaction is exhausting. You're becoming more and more withdrawn. You grab your morning coffee and scoot your rapidly growing kitten off your office chair, and despite her protests, sit down at your desk to check your email. A new message pops up in your inbox almost as soon as you do. It's from Amanda, and you feel you're meeting in the cafe and awkwardly bring up your feelings to her. Subject: Hey buddy. Body: Hey, sorry it's been a few weeks. Meant to get this to you sooner, but it took a while for me to get a hold of my folks back home. Dad told me to say hi, by the way. Anyway, I remember what we talked about last time I saw you, and I hope you aren't insulted, but I asked my mom for the number for her therapist. Don't worry. I didn't tell her who it was for. I think she's worried about me now, though. Haha. Anyway, the number is blah blah blah. It's really a good office. You should look into it. Talking to someone never hurts. If you're worried about money, don't be. They're one of the few that has a really good sliding scale fee system. They won't charge you for what you can't afford. I hope you're feeling better. It was really nice to hear you again. A. It's still early enough that you could call and make an appointment today. Your kitten curls up in your lap and you consider what to do. Call. Make the appointment. Especially, I don't know too much about the sliding scale method and how they judge that, but I hear more therapists are starting to do that. It's from what I know, it's not a super common practice, but more therapists are starting to do that, where it's like a sliding scale, and it makes it more affordable and accessible to people who really, really do need the therapy. So I think that's cool. So I think we should definitely do the appointment. So let's see. 1, call therapist number you look forward to help you think they can offer. 2, try your call a number even though the mere thought of talking to someone makes you anxious. She cared enough to send it to you after all. 3, sleep on it, see how you feel in the morning. You're not keen on the idea. 4, close the email without thinking. It's embarrassing enough already. I say 2. Let's do it. Let's try it. Ugh, the old UI of the iOS. You read through Amanda's email 2 or 3 times, then sit and stare at your computer for a while. While the memory of that uncomfortable conversation makes you feel newly embarrassed and self-conscious, part of you is also encouraged by the fact she cared enough to get back to you at all. Sitting in the front of your computer, you start to question things like whether or not Amanda sent you this number out of pity, or perhaps some sense of obligation after having listened to you. You question her motives and the validity of her concern, and whether or not you think seeing a therapist would even be helpful. Yet almost unconsciously you reach for your phone, and before you realize what's happening, you're listening to the therapist's line ring. Before you can bring yourself to hang up, you listen to the slightly clinical but not unpleasant voice of the receptionist ask how she can help you. I'd like to make an appointment with the doctor, you managed to stammer out. I'm always so bad at making appointments for shit. I really am. I get so nervous. I always pro tip, if you have social anxiety, write a script and write think of common deviations from the script that you can also write down, and that'll help you if they say something that's off kilter from what you were expecting, you're okay, I planned for this. And that's the easiest way to get more and more confident and comfortable with using a phone. Because I remember I was in middle school, and even throughout high school, I was very uncomfortable using a phone and talking on the phone. So uncomfortable with it. Writing a script definitely helps. Even writing key points that you need to remember to ask or remember to tell them, super helpful. Seriously. The conversation is quick and not nearly as unpleasant as you were fearing, and quicker than you'd say, Freudian slip, you've scheduled an appointment. Quicker than you realize, appointment day rolls around. What do you do? Let's go. No, we're not going to bed. Head to therapist's office, even though you're totally unsure of what to expect. Go in there. Do it. You have your first session with your new therapist, Dr. Susan Melville, a tall woman in her mid-40s with a disarming demeanor and patient eyes with the start of the slightest smile lines. She makes you feel comfortable fairly easily, which is a pleasant surprise after all of your anxiety over the appointment. As you leave, you make a second appointment. You're still skeptical about all of this, but figure you might as well see where this goes. The hardest part, it seems, was taking the first step. Still not sure if and how you're going to tell your family or partner, but you figure out you'll deal with it when the time comes. Either way, you feel relieved that you managed to see this through, instead of being paralyzed with worry over it. Even if nothing comes of it, you did something you said you would, instead of flaking out or running away. You're emotionally exhausted when you get home and collapse into bed. You sleep better that night than you have in a week, and you're not sure if it's because you were tired when you got home or because of the therapist. You're moderately depressed. You find it hard to focus on anything because you get physically and mentally exhausted very quickly. You're in therapy with a good counselor. You're doing cognitive behavioral therapy techniques that are starting to help. There we go. Early on Wednesday morning, lately you developed a nasty habit of waking up 10-20 minutes before your alarm rings, and unfortunately today is no exception. You lay in bed, each minute ticking closer and closer to wake-up time, and passing on a swelling wave of ever-encroaching dread. Sooner than you would like, your alarm blares with caustic inevitability. You frantically pound the snooze button, then retreat under your blankets as if the warmth of the comforter can shield you from the passage of time. You almost always have difficulty rising from bed, but today that simple task seemed nothing short of Herculean. After several snooze cycles, you decide that you just can't deal with work today. You're incapable of even arousing yourself from bed, let alone going into work and having to force yourself through a workday. Not to mention you've snoozed so many times it'd be impossible to make it on time now anyways. What do you do? Oh no. Well, he says that it's like, the narrator mentioned that they do have trouble making ends meet, so like, calling in sick is not the best option. Like, yes. Like, yes, you need mental health days, but like, that's not gonna... Not making your rent is gonna make it worse, you know? So, it's like, mental health days are really important. They are. They really are. But, I'm gonna say try to head into work. In spite of the fact your body's actively fighting you literally every step of the way, you somehow manage to drag yourself out of bed and make your way into work. Surprisingly, you end up only being 5 minutes late, and nobody seems to notice or care. Though when you woke up, the simple act of being physically present at your job seemed like an impossibility. You were surprised at your own ability to push on through the day. While you're far from enjoying or indeed even really coping with the dullness of your job today, you seem to have slipped into a trance-like state of automation, and time is nevertheless passing. Eventually, the end of the day rolls around, and you head home, utterly exhausted, but at the same time almost proud of yourself for having stuck it out. Okay, let's see. You are definitely still depressed, but things are getting better. Whatever you're doing seems to be working. You really feel like you're taking steps to affect positive change in your life. You now seem to enjoy seeing your therapist between you giving a chance to talk things out and the CBT techniques she shares with you. You find your sessions extremely helpful. You're not currently taking medication for depression. I noticed that, like, the fuzzy parts are, like, quote-unquote neutral or negative, but like this is solid, so oh, just fuzz. Okay. It's 2 a.m. on Sunday, you have work in the morning. You roll over to see the sickly green-yellow of the time displayed on your LED alarm clock and let out an exasperated sigh. You've been trying to fall asleep for over 3 hours now to no avail. Every time your head hits the pillow, you overcome with anxious thoughts that wrap themselves around each other. Worries about your job lead to worry. Worries about your future lead to worries about your very identity. And you're unable to shake them off long enough to doze off. Your eyes won't even stay shut as your mind races through imagined scenarios going horribly wrong, which you promptly attribute to your general worthlessness. Your thoughts run too fast for you to come to a satisfying conclusion on any one of them. Your room is completely silent, but the silence is giving way to a loud static noise rattling around inside your head. Your heart beats loudly and you worry it's beating a little too fast. You worry that if you focus too strongly on your racing heart, you'll freak yourself out hard enough that you have a heart attack. You have to be awake for work in a mere 8 hours, and you know that your work is so much worse on only a few hours of sleep. What do you do? Oh god, all of these are like crossed out, okay? Go to your computer, sleep is clearly not happening no matter how long you lay there. I find myself, if I have trouble sleeping, I just I do exactly what you're not supposed to do, and I kind of like scroll through shit on my phone until I feel my eyes kind of like feel dry and kind of hurt a little, and then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go to sleep, and then that usually helps, and I'm able to sleep like a log. You get out of bed, head to your desk. Laying in bed with nothing but your thoughts to keep you company makes you feel like you're going insane. The harshness of the light coming from the screen makes you squint as you turn on, despite how often you find yourself in this exact situation. There have been so many nights lately just like this. As you begin reading a news story, an online friend of yours IMs you. Oh my god, who says I am anymore? Oof, we're dating ourselves here. Attic, I see you're up late again. You're up late again, I see. Yeah, can't sleep again. Thinking too much again? You guessed it. Want to talk about it? You end up talking with Attic for quite some time about how you've been feeling. He's always been easy to talk to you about personal matters, and added security of talking online helps. Being able to rethink what you say as you type it out and check it before you send it out always helps, helps you gather your thoughts. And you find it less intimidating in a way to type it all out into a prompt than say it out loud. Because I don't want to be that guy who thinks they can diagnose something because I read a Wikipedia article, but it kind of sounds like you might have depression. You should talk to someone about that, like a doctor. You pause. Are you really that transparent, or is that something you've gotten used to talking about your feelings at this point? Your insomnia makes you a little paranoid, but you shake it off. We can do some research to see if there's a good doctor near you. It's not like you're going back to sleep anytime soon anyway. Might as well do something while you're awake. Smelly fish. No, that's okay. Actually, I've talked to somebody about it. Actually, I've talked to somebody about it. Let's see. Ah, okay, I'm glad you're taking that step. I've heard it's not an easy one. I know people kind of suck at understanding this sort of stuff sometimes, but there's nothing wrong with having depression. You wouldn't be ashamed to have bronchitis or something, so there's no reason to be ashamed if it's your brain that's sick instead. That's a very good way of looking at it, actually. Like, your brain is just another part of your body. Shouldn't feel bad about that. Spend a few more minutes with talking with Attic about your therapy and your feelings about it. He's incredibly supportive, and you're happy to find you have a confidant that understands your illness and is willing to lend an ear when you're having nights like this. A little while later, you fall back into bed, kitten in tow, and find it easier to drift off to sleep. Even in therapy, you know you're still gonna have nights like these sometimes. It's good to know you have a friend who will help carry you through them. Oh, these are solid again. Okay, that's good. It's a chilly Thursday night, and you've just gotten off work. This has felt like one of the longest days you faced in recent memory. Even though nothing exceptional has happened, a ton of minor things keep going wrong. And coworkers had tried your patience throughout the day. You considered leaving work early, but the last thing you want to do is deal with your insufferable boss on top of everything else. You're lost in thought on the commute home, and your feelings of frustration both with your life and the world around you build as you run into minor annoyances like this like someone bumping into you really hard as they walk by. By the time you get home, you're exhausted and remember that these feelings were ones you identified as a negative feedback loop with your therapist. These pent-up feelings aren't dying down and they're eating at you. You open your front door and stare at your apartment, and an overwhelming feeling of exhaustion overcomes you, and you feel like your energy levels are low enough that you'll likely settle into a single activity tonight. What do you do? Reach out. Always reach out. Do it. Your head feels too noisy. You need to trade it for some actual conversation. Your therapist did say it's important to reach out to your support network, so you might as well give it a shot. Who do you call? Malcolm. I would say, or maybe Alex. But the question is, how much does Alex know? Like, how much has he told Alex about the whole therapy thing and everything? You know what I mean? And we still don't know if she's, like, receptive to mental health stuff. So, I would say let's do Malcolm. Remembering the conversation of you two, the conversation the two of you had when you were given the night guard, you recall that your brother had told you to call him if you ever needed to on days like this. The phone rings 3 times before his wife picks up. She tells you he's away on business right now. You redial his cell phone and go straight to voicemail. Feeling defeated, you hang up, lay in bed, thoughts gnawing at you as you do. You feel selfish for trying to reach out to him while he's busy in the first place. He's always so busy when he's an important person to so many people. Oh no. You, on the other hand, laying in bed in a crappy apartment feeling sorry for yourself. Your thoughts turn to how if you were to just vanish, like you feel like no one would notice for days, and when you did, there wouldn't be too many negative consequences for anyone. You're not in charge of anything important, you're distant from your friends, so who would even notice? Your thoughts are interrupted by your phone ringing next to your head. It's Malcolm. Hey, there we go. See, that's good. Hey kiddo, I'm sorry I missed your call. I was in a tunnel on the way back to the hotel. How's it going? He enthusiastically greets you. Although you feel awkward about it, you talk to your older brother about how you've been feeling and what your condition is doing to you right now. The two of you talk on the phone for a good long time. He proves himself to be an excellent listener and very skilled at finding perfect times to lighten the mood with a joke without seeming like he's making fun of you or doesn't take your feelings seriously. He reminds you that you can call him any time that you need to let off some steam. You say your goodbyes, and you find that even though you ended up in tears 1 or 2 times in explaining things, the whole conversation has done a lot to get you into a better headspace. Oh, that's good. It is an utter nondescript Wednesday afternoon, the type of afternoon that would completely fade from memory unless one made an active effort to preserve it. As has become routine on Wednesdays, you're sitting on the couch in Dr. Melville's office. To your mild surprise, she begins the session by breaking her characteristic therapist silence and begins speaking up right away. I want to start by saying I think it's great you decided to come see me. It's an incredibly important first step, she begins. I wanted to take some time today to talk to you about the possibility of supplementing or substituting your treatment with medication. The mention of medication makes your ears perk up and you feel your heart rate increase. She continues. Many people find adding a pharmacological element to their treatment to be very helpful, and some even prefer to take drugs, completely eliminating their need to visit a therapist at all. See, I don't feel the same way, but that's just me. Providing you rely on your support network and are still reaching out to people. I prefer if we keep talking, should you choose to start medication, so that I can monitor your progress and adjust as needed. But the choice is ultimately yours. I wanted to run the option by you to gauge what your thoughts on the matter might be. Dr. Melville has just given you a lot to think about. What do you do? Both everything's overwhelmed you? No. The thought of messing with your brain chemicals makes you uneasy. You'll stick with the therapy. He did mention this before. The narrator did mention this before. The mere mention of medication makes you stiffen uneasily. It was hard enough for you to work up the nerves to start coming to therapy, but the thought of introducing into the equation drugs that literally alter the chemicals in your brain totally freaks you out. You may feel somewhat honor-bound to Amanda to keep with you therapy, but you draw the line in ingesting any sort of chemical that you can't buy at a liquor store. I mean, I don't know if I would compare the two, but okay. This Wednesday evening, you're visiting your parents' house for the holiday. It's one of the handful of times during the year you drive out to visit your old hometown, and you've seen random people you had gone to school with around town. Whenever bumping into them, The usual short versions of what you've done since graduating are exchanged. You've gone through a few of these today and have been very aware how much you feel you haven't accomplished. When you were in high school, you had much larger plans. You feel like you failed to manifest most of them, even if you've managed to. The large lost interest in what you thought you wanted to do growing up. Now you're not really sure what you want to do, and you felt like you're lacking the ambition to drive to figure it out. Everyone you've caught up with seems so much happier than you, like they've got their lives all figured out, and you've kind of been feeling like a failure by comparison. Your brother Malcolm arrives with his wife in tow shortly before you all sit down to dinner. He's been traveling for his job lately and haven't seen him since the day he picked you up from the dentist. Your parents haven't seen him since before then. During dinner, they all catch up, and Malcolm talks about the amazing things he's done on the road. Your mother turns to you and asks what you've been up to since you've last seen them. Oh, same old, you say. Nothing really new going on. Your mother makes a face. Oh, nothing new? How long are you planning on staying at that job of yours? What do you say? Oh, God. Well, his mom is so pushy. Like, just leave him alone, you know? Excuse yourself, go to the bathroom, admit you don't know what you want to do, lie, tell them what they want to hear. You're actively looking for a more prestigious position. When it comes to the mother, I have, like, such a desire to, like, just lie. And just be like, yeah, everything's fine, just leave me the fuck alone. But I do think being honest with people is very, very, very important. I guess we're just gonna be honest. I mean, it's not like he's telling her how he feels precisely about life and everything. So we're just gonna admit that we don't know what we want to do. Actually, you start sheepishly. I'm not really sure what I want to do right now. Your mom puts down her fork. So what, you're planning on living the way you do for the rest of your life? How would you afford a house on that paycheck? What about kids? Oh, God. Okay. I guess that was the wrong move. Your father interrupts, lightly placing his hand over your mother's. It's okay, Linda. Let the kids be what they are. There's nothing wrong with not knowing what you want to do in your 20s. I didn't get into construction until I was nearly 40. Your mother looks across the table at you, unsatisfied with her husband's reasoning. I don't think it's normal for someone that age not to have a path. You need to think hard about it, or you'll never make anything of yourself. Mom, come on. Mom, come on, Malcolm interjects. This emotionally exhausts you. You want to tell her you're thinking hard, and not knowing what you're doing with yourself bothers you more than it could ever bother her. That sometimes it feels like you're lost in the woods, and that if you were to drop dead in your apartment, the world wouldn't notice. You want to make her understand that more often than not, you feel like an alien. Like there isn't anywhere in this world that feels like a place where you can belong. And you have no idea how to fix it or what to do. You wish you could find the words so that you would understand that being looked down on for this kills you, and drives home the feeling of being a total outsider. Instead, you get very quiet for the rest of the meal while your mind goes numb. Everything inside you feels exhausted. His mom's a fucking bitch. That's all I'm gonna say. It's a rainy night. You are hurrying through the rain to Alex's apartment on her behest. Though your pace is quick, the rain is steadily soaking up your pant legs. As soon as you I was about to say, why is that singular? As soon as you traverse the town, in this darkening, you're already poor mood. The call came while you were at home after a day of dealing with abnormally frustrating people. You spend the afternoon trying to unwind and get some work on your project done. Alex called and interrupted one of your try to make progress, get frustrated, not making progress, have harder time making progress due to frustration, repeat loops, and you haven't fully shaken off the feelings of being annoyed with yourself from it yet. You knock on her door, and on the third knock, you hear her voice call from further in the apartment to come on in. As you cross the threshold, dripping rainwater all the way, you notice that the lights are turned down very low in the apartment. You squint to navigate as you clutch onto your damp umbrella, but end up hitting your shin on the side table, mumbling a profanity under your breath. You barely make out Alex emerging from the hallway, clad in what looks like to be a robe, with the bare skin of her legs peering out underneath. Why don't you come in and warmed up? She asks in her designated, slightly cheesy, sexy voice. After a beat of silence, she states more naturally, my roommates are out of town this weekend, so I thought it might be nice to have a little fun while they're away. You appreciate her affection, but you're too wrapped up in your own negative feedback loops to be in the mood right now. What do you do? Aww. Let go of your stress, be intimate with your girlfriend, try to unwind with her before getting physical, suggest you do something else instead, tell her you're not in the mood. Honestly, if you're not in the mood and you try to force it, more often than not, you're still not gonna be in the mood and you're not gonna perform well. To just, I guess, be brief. But I think try to unwind with her before getting physical. That can kind of get you in the mood, you know? Try to, like, forget, like, okay, like, let's just watch something real quick, and then kind of build up to it. I think kind of helps. I think that would help, because it seems like he's, like, very stressed out right now, so he needs, like, a little bit of a break from that schedule, that negative feedback loop. You look at her standing barely lit and notice there's a few candles scattered around the apartment. It occurs to you she'd tried to make this night special for the two of you. Even though you have a tight knot of antisocial frustration in your stomach, seeing how much she cares makes you want to try to melt it away. So you can show her how much you care, that she's gone through all this trouble. However, you desperately need to shift gears first, before that's even possible. You look amazing. Let's have a drink together, you suggest, hoping that this will give you a push you need to get into the mood. You get into the kitchen, pour the two of you drinks, trying to focus on letting go of your bad mood. You sit on the couch next to her, and she cuddles up to you instantly. What should we toast to? She asks, as she takes her drink. You think for a moment, passing up to the cheesy to us option. You say, what's on your mind? Letting go of your bad day. To tonight. The two of you cheers, and you ask her about her day. Conversation turns flirtatious, and the two of yourselves find yourself in the bedroom shortly after. There you go, see? Need to unwind. It's okay to take a break sometimes. It's early winter evening, and even though it's not particularly late, the time of the year has lent the sky an almost prematurely darkened cast. Day after day, just like today, you trudge home from a job you have increasingly come to hate. On this day, your job misery seems to have reached critical mass, and not even shedding your rain-laden and uncomfortable work clothes helps you to unwind from your workday. You collapse onto your couch, blank and numb, while your job always seems to just be an unpleasant reality of existence. It was a position you sort of fell into unexpectedly. Never intending to work there long term, it's getting harder and harder to keep up. Well, it's certainly not your dream job. You've always just sort of stuck it out of necessity before. But it's becoming increasingly difficult to do that, though you couldn't even begin to imagine what else you could do. You find yourself face to face with the question you just can't ignore. Is your complacency worth the price of this level of misery? What do you do? Oh, see, I would do one. Polish off that resume and start looking at other jobs. That's what I would do. Try to be at least productive by focusing your efforts on projects. Maybe you look through classifieds for another job. Alright, let's do 3. Let's do it. You boot up your computer and navigate the local Craigslist. Why would you look at Craigslist? How old is this game? You sift through a myriad of legitimate postings, clear pyramid schemes, and the occasional miscategorized random personal ad. You look through the section that's in line with your current job and start feeling a bit of despair. Would things really be any different if you were simply doing the same thing somewhere else? You email your resume to a few of the postings after coming up with a cover letter that you could use for a variety of things. After you exhaust the postings for the last few days, you head back to the main page. There's a section that's more in line with the project you've been doing, though it's a highly competitive creative field that you don't even feel remotely qualified for. Despite that, you click on the section, scroll through the postings, you daydream about actually holding a position where you would get to do something more meaningful. Despite feeling completely intimidated by the requirements, you find a listing you actually want to apply for. You spend an hour crafting a really personal cover letter and really giving your all to the task and nervously send off the email. You're rather convinced that you'll never hear back from these places, but the act of trying to change your situation instead of stewing on it actually feels quite freeing. You find yourself trying to stifle the hope that you end up getting the creative job, but it somehow seems to bubble up anyway. See, that's good. That's good. I feel like sometimes, personally, for me in my depression, trying to force yourself to be productive and doing like little small tasks sometimes gets you in that mindset where you're like, oh, I'm motivated right now to do something bigger. Like, for instance, I'm like, okay, let me just, like, one of my New Year's resolutions is to write more, because I used to do a lot of creative writing. So that's something I want to get back into, is write again. So I try to force myself to write a little bit, and I find myself, 2 pages later, I'm like, it starts off as that first initial goal of the day of, okay, let me just write something down, just a little something. And then soon I get into that groove, and I'm like, oh shit. And, 1, 2, 3 pages later, you've got something, and you're like, wow, I did it. I did the thing, and then some. I did that little task that I set myself to do, and I ended up enjoying it, and just kind of, because, like, trying to set bigger goals that are, like, unrealistic for your day, like, I'm gonna write 3 pages tonight when I get back from work, it's like, that's probably not gonna happen, because you're setting yourself up for failure, because you're forcing yourself to do 3 pages. Instead, be like, okay, maybe a few really well-crafted paragraphs. Or maybe a well-crafted or a rough first page, and see where that goes. And then, you'll find yourself kind of grooving along with that, So, I think small goals will immediately sometimes turn very easy into completing big goals. How the fuck am I gonna do this? Me every day. It's a little past 8 p.m. on a Tuesday night. You're at your computer, frustration levels peaked, rubbing your eyes and sighing heavily. You're working on a project from your job that has you stretched to wit's end, trying to meet a looming deadline. As it lurks closer and closer, you are seriously doubting your ability to get it done. You've dragging your feet a little at work due to your complete lack of energy lately, in spite of wanting to do a good job. You find yourself unable to push past it and feel horribly useless. You slide your hands off your face, look at your screen, and it beeps at you. Hey, are you there? I really need to talk to someone about something. Oh, it's Attic. You feel like you're getting nowhere at your current task, probably use a break. However, you know that you have a history of getting distracted and losing motivation to pick something back up again afterwards. What do you do? Hey, if he needs someone to talk to, that might be something very important. I would say answer him. Feeling like you've hit a brick wall with your task, so why not take a break and help out a friend? Hey, what's up? Oh good, you're there. I just found out I got cheated on. I don't know what to do. Oh no, that's horrible. The two of you talk for a long time. You lend a shoulder to your friend. You give him space to rant, to cry, and most importantly, to be able to voice his inner turmoil. Give him your full attention and talk him through what his options are for what he has to do next. You keep him from doing something rash, and the two of you decide it's best to sleep on it before doing anything. Exhausted, he departs for bed and thanks you for being there to talk to him. As you close the IM window, you feel horribly sorry for your friend, but happy that you're able to help. It serves as a tangible reminder to you that you're capable of being useful to someone, instead of solely being a mess that needs everyone else's help. You boot up your work project and find you're suddenly able to gain some solid progress done on in that night. Hey, there we go! You're doing well. You may still have your bad days, but now you have effective ways to deal with them, and you don't get nearly as low as you used to, or for as long. You still visit your therapist, and even she has remarked on how much more alive you seem lately. That's good. Yet another sleepless Thursday night. You're at Alex's apartment, wide awake in bed as she's sleeping peacefully beside you. She fell asleep hours ago, and you've been laying there unable to shut your brain up long enough to fall asleep. You've added the feelings of insecurity about your relationship to the rest of the noise in your head, keeping you up tonight. It was kind of tense night between the two of you. You arrived at after a stressful day at work, and you made dinner together. You barely said a word. You were stuck in your own head and had a hard time really being present with her, as your thoughts turned to all of the ways you feel like you're deficient at being a good person, and beating yourself up mentally for each one. She told you she could tell you were in one of your moods, and said she wouldn't push you. Missed talking to you as the two of you sat on the couch together. You wanted to tell her how much you love her, but couldn't make the words come out right, and ended up sounding defensive instead. As you lay there next to her now, you trace your fingers across her arm, just slightly enough to not wake her. You still haven't explained your depression to her, or have you started seeing a therapist, and it's starting to feel more and more like a secret you're keeping instead of something she simply doesn't know about you yet. See, that's why I was like, okay, did he tell her or not? Yeah, I think that's something really important you should talk to her about, because then she will know, like, okay, you're dealing with it, you're actively being productive with your fighting your depression, and like she can become a support system rather than someone who's just there sometimes, you know? It's becoming more and more apparent that it's impacting your relationship with her, and you feel guilty about this. However, you're also terrified that if she knew exactly how fucked up you are, that she would leave you. You're already worried that she's only with you because she doesn't realize how terrible of a person you are yet, and you're afraid this would be the final thing to expose you. She stirs in her sleep and squints as she opens her eyes. With the confusion that comes with waking up, she asks you if you're awake, and then if everything's okay. I would say just tell her, because honestly, if she's one of those people that are like, depression's not a thing, blah, 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 you might as well just fucking break up with her. Like, she's not worth it, bro. You'll find so many people who are much more supportive, so I would say tell her. You feel like a jerk for accidentally waking her up, but you're afraid if you put this off any longer, you wouldn't find the strength to tell her everything later. No, actually, everything isn't okay. Can I tell you something? Something important? Alex sits up, rubbing the sleep out of her eyes. For the rest of the night, you lay side by side, holding hands as you tell her everything. You tell her how it's been more than just feeling sad sometimes, how you feel trapped by your own mind sometimes, how sometimes you feel nothing at all, and how you can't shake it off. You tell her how you started going to therapy, how you feel embarrassed about it, and how it's working out for you. She listens the entire time, occasionally asking questions about how this or that works, or asking you how to explain stuff further. She squeezes your hand and tells you she understands, and that she's sad you didn't tell her sooner. Oh, that's good. After laying silent for a moment, the weight of what you did hits you. You desperately want her to say something, to tell you how she's been feeling about all of this, but you're too afraid of what the answer would be to ask. You start convincing yourself that now she knows everything, she's gonna leave. There's no way someone can deal with you with how you really are. So how can I help? What do you need me to do? She asked. You think for a second, and the answer you come up with fills you with despair. I honestly don't know. I wish I knew how to fix this, but I don't know what you can do. Know that you can do anything. I think it's something I just have to live with. She looks at you with sad eyes before kissing you on the forehead. Then I'll live with it with you. Oh, my heart. I don't know how you could possibly love me. She rolls over and wraps her arms around your neck, settling her head on top of yours. You don't need to, just know that I do. Oh, so sweet. It's a Friday night and you're laying across your bed feeling pathetic. As you were leaving work tonight, a group of coworkers asked if you wanted to join them for drinks. Feeling antisocial and put on the spot, you decline. You have a habit of doing this. You're often so convinced that you are weird and terrible, and that any invitation to hang out will end in disappointment for those inviting you. You never feel like you know how to act in group outings, and you feel like a total creep since it seems to come so naturally to anyone who isn't you. You find yourself petrified of breaking some unknown social rule that you often don't go out. Now, however, you find yourself alone at home. Your brain has begun telling you how pathetic and sad you are for being unable to just be a normal person and go out with nice people. You can't figure out why you just can't go out and meet people and enjoy yourself. At the same time, you're also feeling like no one would possibly want to hang out if they really knew you, because you're dull and weird anyway. You try your typical strategy and boot up Netflix to distract yourself from these feelings, but frustration with yourself builds, and you realize you have to do something else with your night. Anything else to take your mind off how awful and lonely you feel right now. What do you do? Say call Alex. Let's do that. She did offer to help, so sometimes I think being in relationships, there's, I've always been in relationships with other people who have depression, so I kind of get the whole help, like wanting to help aspect. It looks like Alex doesn't have depression, but even still, I feel like in relationships, some people feel like, okay, they didn't come to me for help, like what am I doing wrong? So I think him going to her for help will be really good, because for her, it'll feel like, okay, like I'm bonding and understanding his depression better. So maybe I'll know on my own different ways. Okay, when I do this, he seems to feel happier. So maybe I should do more of this. And let me not do, this, because this doesn't seem to be working for his depression. So I think calling Alex would be better, because it gives her a feeling of importance, as well as both of you can kind of bond together. You dial Alex's phone number, figuring that if you could spend some time with her instead of being cooped up in your apartment alone, you might feel less isolated. Her phone rings a handful of times before going to voicemail. You know it's not uncommon for her to be out with her friends at this hour. You leave a voicemail but end up calling in 15 minutes later, still no response. Imagine Alex out with her friends, much like you would be out tonight if you weren't so horrible at socializing. Your mind wanders and you start to wonder who she's with. If she might meet someone tonight she'd rather be with, someone who's able to go to parties like this with her instead of sitting at home feeling sorry for themselves. Why didn't she invite you? Have you just said no one too many times? How many other Fridays have you unknowingly missed? You begin to think maybe it'd be better if she met someone tonight. She's a wonderful woman, and you feel like a constant joy kill on nights like this. Why can't you just be normal? The next morning, Alex calls you back, tells you she left her phone in class, spent a boring night in her apartment too. You feel horribly embarrassed about how emotional you gotten over mistaken assumptions the night before. Nice shoot. Hold on. I think I had those same exact pair of Converse, because they had the inside like that. I think it had like a geisha on the side right here. And I think there was if I remember correctly, a dragon on the other side. Those are my favorite pair of Converse. Converse gang for life. But yes, I recognize that pattern anywhere. And it did have pink stitching. It was like a gray. It was like a medium to darker tone gray. It's a cold Saturday afternoon. You've just arrived at Alex's apartment, and you're happy to finally see her after a week of absence due to your schedules not lining up due to work and school. You hug her in the doorway, but she breaks away sooner than normal and sits down on the couch as you take off your sneakers and lay them in the usual place right next to hers. There's something I was hoping we could talk about, actually, she says. You instantly worry you've been blindsided by a breakup conversation due to the sudden shift in tone, but she quickly smiles and puts you at ease once she sees all the color leave your face. It's nothing bad, I promise. See, I get like that too. It sounds like we need to talk. Don't start off like that. Just be like, hey, there's this conversation I want to have, and by the way, it's not anything bad, so don't think that, it's bad. That's how, personally, that's how I think people should open up serious conversations like that, instead of making people, panic, With that, she leads you over the couch and sits on the other end of it facing you. So I hope this doesn't freak you out, but if you feel like things are going too fast, just tell me. She talks faster than usual and fidgets. We seem to have a lot of weeks like this, and they really suck. I was thinking I'd ask, since things are so strong with us, what are your thoughts on maybe moving in together? Ooh, that's good. That's really good. Takes a few seconds to sink in and leaves you a bit shocked when it does. You were worried she wanted to spend less time with you, not more. Do you want to, you ask? Well, yeah, I do. I mean, we'd have to sort out logistics and everything, but those things are all things we can take care of. I think, especially the fact that it's a short walk away to her apartment, she can just move into his apartment, depending on how big it is, or they could ask the apartment complex if they could upscale. But I don't know, we'll see. You start to walk through the steps of imagining the two of you living together. You love the thought of being able to wake up next to her every day and seeing her so often. However, the more you picture it, the more a few concerns become apparent. There are things she's insulated from, like the days you don't feel like you can get out of bed, the frequent nights you're unable to shut your brain up long enough for sleep. All those moments you're stuck staring at the wall, completely out of energy and feeling nothing. How would she handle that? How quickly would she want to get away? So she starts, what do you think? He has a point, but at the same time, I feel like there would be less of those moments if there's somebody else living with you, because you have somebody else to like feed energy off of. Whereas like if you're in an apartment by yourself, you have nothing to feed off of, like nobody else to kind of like bounce energy off of, or like feel like, oh, you know, like someone's here, like let me ask, like, oh, let's cook dinner together, or, you know, like make up like little small things to do together that kind of take away those moments. So I think he's completely not seeing that side of it. Tell her you want to but have concerns and discuss them honestly. Tell her you don't think it's a good idea for you right now. Decide to move in regardless of your worries. He's been honest with her, so I think still be honest. Keep being honest. Be honest. Just tell her, like, hey, you know, you're really worried that if Alex were to live with you, she wouldn't be able to deal with your days of being unable to get out of bed, or nights where you can do nothing but stare at the wall and panic. Even though you've discussed your situation with her, you still feel she doesn't realize the depths of how bad it gets. It's one thing for you to detail how you feel sometimes, and for her to see it pop up occasionally. It's an entirely different situation to be something she has to live with alongside you. Well, I'd like to, but I think it's best if we talk about it a bit more before committing to a decision. Although she seems a little defeated, you make it clear you're not making excuses, actually mean that you want to talk. You reiterate a lot of what you told Alex that night. And although she gets a little defensive and tells you she knows all of that already, she confirms she's willing to help you sort through your issues. I feel like you forget I love you sometimes. I know there'll be bad days, and I'd rather try to work on them through them with you. We can figure all of this out together. Her words sway you, and you can't help but hold her close to you. See? That's good. That's all very good. It's December and you return to your parents' house to celebrate the holidays with your family. Out of the living room, you can see a gentle flurry of snow drifting down to meet the pristine blanket of white from yesterday's unexpected Christmas Eve snowfall, and you quietly laugh to yourself how incredibly cliche it seems. Still, as you sit down to dinner, you can't help but notice how being surrounded by family and the overly kitschy atmosphere of your mother's decorations have actually made you feel relaxed and almost comfortable. Your mom is running around frantically checking the oven and the stockings and just generally trying to family time it up, while your dad sits at the head of the table drinking a beer and laughing with your brother Malcolm. His wife Karen is there too, whom you've always gotten along well with, and your parents even agreed to let you bring your kitten along. She's been darting in and out of people's legs, hopping onto laps all night. Oh, kitty! As you thoughtfully munch away at your turkey, listening to conversations around you, your thoughts drift back over the last few months. You think about how hard things have gotten, replaying over in your head some of your worst, as well as some of your best memories. It seems like all of these things just came to head over the past few months, with a sudden flurry of friendship turmoil and professional anxiety, social stress, and above all, an omnipresent sense of weight that seems to have just recently become aware of. You're drawn out of your reverie by your dad's familiar booming laugh, as some cheesy comment Malcolm made seems to have hit its mark. Sitting at the table, you're suddenly immensely glad for the chance to be able to ignore everything for an evening and not have to struggle trying to explain yourself for once. Fortunately, everyone seems to be content with laughing at each other's jokes and discussing favorite sports teams, and for a while you think you'll be able to get through dinner without any embarrassing personal intrusions. But no sooner did the thought cross your mind than the table conversation trickle off, leaving a slightly awkward silence to descend upon dinner. So how are you doing these days? Your mom asked you pointedly. Such a simple question, and one I've had to answer countless times recently. Take a moment to recollect your thoughts, looking up, and take a deep breath. Well, you never really thought of yourself as a fighter. Even to say it now sounds hokey, but looking back on the past few months where you are now, it really does feel like you've endured an immense struggle. And you look at where you are now with the sense of something that isn't quite pride. You still hate your job and find it unpleasant, but you're surprised that you're going to work every day is no longer a monumental challenge. You've started adopting some clever techniques, like taking short 2-minute breaks every hour to break up the monotony. And you now view your job as just 8 short hours of the day. A compartmentalization technique Dr. Melville told you about that you found actually works quite well. You know this job isn't what you want to do for the rest of your life. You started actively looking at other positions, even attending a couple preliminary interviews. Start making an effort to go out with your friends more. While the social scene still makes you feel very uncomfortable sometimes, you're more and more able to let yourself just enjoy the company of your friends. In fact, your relationship with many of them has increased over the past little while. You still definitely have days where you flake out or just don't feel up to hanging out, but for the most part, your friends are understanding and appreciate your communication. By far, the biggest challenge you've noticed in your life has been in your relationship with Alex. You're terrified of talking to her about everything at first, but looking back, you feel like it's only strengthened your relationship. See, it's that bonding thing I was saying. She was always supportive of you emotionally, but lately the two of you have been even more in sync, and it's really starting to feel like you're building a life together. It even seems like the two of you have been making more concerted effort to sync up your schedules and been spending more and more of downtime with each other. Pretty soon, you think moving in together may be a very real possibility. Dr. Melville commented on how well you seem to be doing, and you can't help but agree. With all that seems to improve recently, it's sometimes difficult for you to think about the fact you still have bad days. Sometimes even really bad days. They serve as a stark reminder of the fact that this will be something you likely have to deal with for the rest of your life. Depression is battle, and though you're certainly ahead of your fight, you know battle isn't ever going to be over. Sometimes even Alex can tell when things are going rough, despite your best efforts to the contrary. While you know that your depression can never be cured, you have a very strong support network in your friends and even Malcolm, and armed with a newfound confidence in your friends and family, you accept that though the road may be rocky, it is at very least not solitary. You meet your mom's gaze across the table and muster up a smile. "I'm good, Mom," you tell her. She says nothing, but you can feel her smile from across the room. We really want to thank you for your time to play Depression Quest. We realize it may not be the most enjoyable game you've ever played, or even the easiest, and we certainly appreciate your involvement. Like Depression itself, Depression Quest does not have an end, really. There's no neat resolution to depression, and it was important for us that Depression Quest's own resolution reflect that. Instead of a tidy ending, we want to just provide a series of outlooks, just to take moving forward. After all, that's all we can really do with depression, just keep moving forward. At the end of the day, it's our outlook and support from people just like you that make all the difference in the world. Thanks again. Credits! Alright. And you, for willing to play games that are meant to be something other than simply fun. That was good! That was really good, actually. Honestly, I think that this was a pretty good game. I'm not entirely sure where all the mixed reviews were coming in from. I know that there were some reviews saying, oh, you know, this guy sounds so whiny, and, you know, things like that, which I feel like is a little bit disingenuous because everybody's depression is a little bit different. But again, like I said in the beginning, if you need to reach out, there honestly is no shame in reaching out. Even if you can't just like make that jump to go see a therapist, finding an online community, I'm sure Discord is like a huge ocean of different niche communities. I'm sure you can find like a community for helping with your depression or any type of mental health issue that you need. So honestly, I feel like Discord would be a pretty good free alternative. And if you do have the resources to see a therapist, please do so. But if not, I think Discord, definitely like a very close friend or a family member or even your partner, you'd be very surprised where you can find different resources for a support system. I think that's very important because while therapy is great and all, therapy is only probably a third of what's going to actually help you. So if you can get the other 2/3, I think you'll be doing pretty good. I will link some workbooks that I think are tremendous with helping. I know they've kind of helped me a little bit. So I'll link some workbooks and some journals in the description box. But I hope that, you learned something from this. if you didn't know about depression, or maybe even it pushes you to kind of do something and be productive with how you view your mental health and how you treat your mental health, because it's very important. So, as always, guys, please remember to hydrate and don't be a jerk. Have a good day or night and go compliment somebody, okay? And remember to please, please, please take care of yourself.